Welcome back to our week 1 lecture series, COM 2113, Media Culture and Social Influence. We're just tackling questions from students, but we're doing more than that. We're not just doing anything. We're doing a lot of stuff. We're bridging information. We're building knowledge together. We're co-creating. And that's very exciting. We're taking some questions from Stephanie currently, and drawing from, the book's just out of reach here, Arthur Asa Berger's Messages, an Introduction to Communication, and also Berger's Media and Society, a critical introduction. All right, and a pair of readings that overlap a little bit, but then also have plenty to say in different directions as we study both a kind of introduction to communication and an introduction to media studies in this accelerated fast track course at MacU. Stephanie writes, Jacobson's model, okay, the many models of communication were first introduced to, that, quote, the context in which the message is sent plays an important role in helping the receiver make sense of the message, end quote. Why does how the message is sent matter? Just over my shoulder, right? Marshall McLuhan, one of the earliest sort of media theorists, and definitely a public intellectual in his own day. One of our last truly great public intellectuals, actually, and it was a long time ago. But McLuhan's most famous iteration of his take on mass communication theory is the medium is the message. That's the title of one of his most famous works, right? The medium is the message. And what does that mean? Well, we've talked about mediums already early on in this course, and a medium is kind of the mechanism through which a communication travels, right? And we have different mass mediums that each produce their own mass media, right? Mass mediated communication. So we've already covered this ground, talked about how, we can think about the film itself as a medium, as a mass medium, right? The traditional way, like celluloid strips, and it's captured at 20, or at least projected at 24 frames per second, and so on, and this becomes a moving image with sound, and later with color, and this is a mass medium that has evolved and continues to evolve. Traditional film to digital film, and so on. It continues to evolve. Television, same thing. Something that was broadcast, right? Is in a signal was sent out. Those waves were sent out. There are receivers that can bring them in, and they translate that information. People have antennas in their homes, and they're like moving their antennas around to try to get that picture right, to try to get that audio clear. Yeah, this is the communication process, right? They're trying to receive the maximum amount of message. They're trying to receive the most accurate amount of information, like, what is Lucy going to do? Is Ricky going to find out what Lucy's been up to, or what is going on in the Korean War or whatever? Early television. This is mass communication. This is people trying to receive communication accurately. And then we have other mass mediums. Radio precedes film, precedes television, right? It's audio based. We have radio today. We have terrestrial radio. We have satellite radio. We have digital radio. These are all different kind of variations, evolutions of mass mediums. And then, of course, the internet changes this all, because the internet makes possible the reception of all of this media in the same type of through the same type of mechanism, through that kind of broadband mechanism. But yet we have things like 3G, 4G, and 5G. Conspiracy theories, right? I just got some alerted the conspiracy theorists by reference of 5G, and I'll let you chase that that white rabbit on your own time. But and now we're talking about a different kind of reception. So we have these mass mediums, and so McLuhan was theorizing that the medium is the message, meaning sometimes it's not about the communication itself, it's how that communication is traveling that's going to make the biggest difference. Let's think about different examples from a single medium. Let's talk about, he's going there. Let's talk about cable news. Again. Again, you're like, I just turned that off. I just left X place where it was, blaring over the speakers. But cable news, right? This idea of which medium is going to get a message to the most people, right? And used to talk radio was this way that they really used kind of grassroots message sending to get to a particular type of audience, and kind of embed them with a certain brand of information exchange. And now we even see within the medium that happening, in the way that demographics start to get split up between different cable news channels. So one cable news channel is kind of catering to one kind of, demographic preference, and then another, cable channels appealing to another demographic. But then guess what? After 2016, when we're like, how are all of our political polls failing and presenting quote unquote faulty information? And sometimes it has to do with, well, where was that information coming from? Because while we were so distracted with who's watching this cable TV channel and who's watching that cable TV channel and how are they different, a younger demographic completely bypassed that, and they're getting their information from another source, right? And so the internet, that mass medium, the internet, changes things. It changes how we receive information, and that matters because suddenly the kinds of information someone gets from traditional news is completely different from the kinds of information that someone's just getting off of maybe the world's largest information portal now, YouTube, right? And so the medium does matter, right? And so Marshall McLuhan, he was writing about this in the 1960s, right? He's well ahead of the curve, right, on this, and this is an accurate prediction. Although the point is not to get caught up in how maybe like prophetic McLuhan was. It is just to recognize that certain aspects of intellectuality can help us accurately predict or interpret reality, and of which communication is a constant in our reality. Let me jump down to a question from Tyler, and then we'll hit Savannah, and then we might be close here. All right, so Tyler asks, responding to the media and society introduction, at the very end of this chapter, what do you think the author means when he states, quote, so the music we like when we are 20 may not be the music we like when we are 30 or 40. And the same applies to our preference for text in all the media, end quote. What do you think this will look like for me in 10 years? First of all, I don't know. I'm not Tyler, so I can't predict. I don't have enough information to accurately predict for Tyler what it looks like in 10 years. Also, different, possibly. It will look different in different ways. If I could make a living predicting the future, that sounds like another revenue stream that I'm absolutely open to doing, if as long as I can I guess do it from a quarantine location. But Tyler does follow up with, the author claims that all media is connected to each other. What does this look like in real life? I've just described it. Look at this. Boom. Well, it's been days since I looked at the questions in this order, and these questions we're simpatico, right? This question hits exactly on the thread that we've been flowing today, especially this idea about mass mediums, and sort of, they used to be distinct and different, right? Film, television, radio, and so on. And then we had the internet, and it was kind of distinct in its own way for a while, but now it's blurred and merged. And this is what media theorist, Henry Jenkins refers to as convergence culture, right? Convergence theory, this idea that information converges together, that it's no longer kind of, we're far out in left field worrying about X thing, when now it easily overlaps, right? I'm gonna use some shorthand here, right? Follow my lead. This is what we could call the Wikipedia-ification of culture, of society. Do you follow what I'm saying there? That is that everything is only one hyperlink away from everything else, right? Remember that old game in the 90s, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, and the idea was you're trying to connect different maybe stars and celebrities or whatever to Kevin Bacon, and like 6 points of connection or whatever, or less, right? The goal is as few as possible. Everything has been shortened by the internet, right? The world feels smaller. Just this morning, for a different class, a strategic interviewing class, I connected with a BBC journalist down in Tanzania, in the southeastern African region. I haven't seen this individual in person since 2006. And it took a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy to get down to that place to visit in 2006. And now I just connect. I just make a connection and we're there. It was as if the 14 years in between had erased. And suddenly I was seeing a person, interacting with them again, as if no time had passed. And that is the power and the significance of change, and then the evolutionary nature of how communication is changing, and how that technology is intertwined with communication. And we already know this because we do this every day, right? All of you, self-reporting, your media logs, our habits, right? Whether we're consuming it passively, it's the typical mode of most people, or we're somehow kind of engaging, in back and forths or whatever, social media, email, texting, and so on. It's all at our fingertips. That's what it looks like in real life. And our media logs are fruits of that inquiry. Question about the introduction to communication from messages. If media and communication have always been around, then why is it such a complex thing to learn? I see this is a trick question. Would it be easier because we know about it? Yeah, this question we've already answered in the series, so I encourage you to go back. But communication is arguably more complex than ever. The benefit we have is that the technology I just described, and this is not a plug for Wikipedia. Don't misunderstand me. But this Wikipedia-ification of culture, as I've called it, the benefit to that is there are answers readily available at our fingertips. The problem is information illiteracy. Is us reading the world and saying, okay, every single source that's out there of information is equally valid. Now, recently, within this kind of this coronavirus phase that we're in, early on, there was a lot of kind of clashing of heads, butting of heads, and like, this should be this way, this shouldn't be this way. I should follow these guidelines and show concern. I should care less, right? At least in the state I'm currently, residing in. And I heard more than once this phrasing of, well, my opinion still matters. And my opinion still matters, like, not just like matters to me, but my opinion is equally valid or whatever. And there is a completely distinct scenario between it is important that everyone's voice can be heard, and what everyone says is equally on the same level of either accuracy or intelligence or experience. We know that's not the case. But when we start to just make those quick blurrings of the lines, that's where, kind of indecision or mal-decision gets made, and we have to be conscientious of that potentiality so that we can steer ourselves in the right direction. Savannah comments on media and society, a critical perspective. First, do you think experience plays a part in what makes a marketer able to predict what a person would prefer based on age? Do you think that strategy, basing what a person likes on demographic measures, do you think that strategy is accurate most of the time? And let's pause there and say, hey, if for those of you all continuing the major, we're going to get into some phenomenal strategies in our public relations, advertising, brand management course. we have our integrated marketing public relations elective, and we have some social media courses, some strategic planning courses, and we'll continue those dialogues. So I don't want to feel like your questions are ever unanswered, but I just want to kind of plug that confidence that we'll engage a lot of those and more as we go. But in terms of, do you think the experience plays a part in what makes a marketer able to predict a person? Well, of course, yes. The longer you do it, the more you understand. And yeah, I get it. People are different. Tastes are different. Tastes change. Style changes right over time. Trends. This is where we get this term, trending. And so, there's also that old saying, like, the only constant is change. But you know what? We also have this other one that there's nothing new under the sun, right? That things happen in cycles. They come back around, and we can expect that and anticipate that. Just like the market, right? Those are the people right now are sort of our world market is kind of in a free fall, has been since the start of this. But a lot of people are saying, hey, don't panic. Like, markets cycle back around, and usually when they cycle back, they come back stronger than ever eventually. Like, let the market play out, that old adage. But we can kind of cross apply that to a lot of fashion trends. Things fade out of fashion, right? We understand that term. They get old, they get stale. People are ready for the next thing, the new thing, and that's a cycle of consumerism too. But it circles back around, because what happens? You give it a certain amount of time, and the consumer becomes there is a longing for that absence, right? And there's a term we use for this, right? Nostalgia. We become nostalgic for that thing, and we're likely to kind of revisit it. But you know what? We revisit it in new ways. We revisit it in updated ways. Let's talk about media for a second, all right? Let's talk about an extremely popular quote-unquote TV series. It's really a streaming series to make this point, all right? So let's use the example of Netflix Stranger Things, all right? Who's seen it? Everybody raise your hand. A lot of you? Okay. A lot of you have seen this. 3 quick seasons. It really appeals to certain demographics. It appeals to young people. It appeals to people that vividly remember and recall and reflect fondly about the 1980s, right? So it's a show that's steeped in nostalgia for the 80s. It's kind of a remixing greatest hits of not really the 1980s, but the 1980s popular culture, and how popular culture reflected real culture in the 80s. So the show is constantly filled with these homages, right? Is what we, in using media studies terminology, what we'd refer to as intertextual references. So references about old references throughout. In fact, that's part of the game. The show's a game. Like, it's inviting you, it's asking you to play that game. You don't just play the game by consuming, you play the game by like viewing and watching, and then you kind of have these little aha moments, like, I get it, I got that reference. This one's referring to my favorite movie from the 80s. This one's referring to my second favorite movie, and so on. But it's updated. It's not it's borrowing from fashion, it's borrowing from trends, it's borrowing this and that. But what is it? It's shot in slick, ultra high definition, super expensive looking show, super expensive show, right? And so it's also not all the movies it's pretending to be. It's a TV series, but it's a streaming series too. So it's not TV either. It is TV, it's not TV. It's of the 80s, but it's not of the 80s. And it's kind of like playing with nostalgia constantly, because it's constantly looking back and reminding us of all these different genres. Hey, we've been talking about genre in our video discussion, right? All these different genres, and then remixing them. And that's effective genre theory right there, as we've also noted. So yeah, marketers can, I'm just going to cut it off here. I could go on for a while, but marketers can and do recognize, right? You learn to have a trained eye for these cycles, for basic consumer demand, and you can accurately predict to a degree. At the same time, things fail all the time, just like some things succeed. That's why something like a Shark Tank can be successful. It's that American dream type of narrative about breaking through and having that idea that hits. That's what it is. Okay. I'm going to leave with this. Speaking of Stranger Things, I'm going to leave us on a cliffhanger by previewing where we'll head in the course with Savannah's final question. It's the last question I pulled for this week. Savannah writes, Could you explain the section of focal points more in depth? And of course, the Span is referring to Arthur Asa Berger's focal points model. And the focal points model is something we're going to get into quite a bit in this course, all right? So it's a teaser as we look ahead. I'm not going to get into it all the way just yet. I want to give us an opportunity to read about it. It will appear in both texts, very likely, and we're going to find some ways to use it in Column 2113, Media Culture and Social Influence. Thank you for listening.